Welcome to this episode of Black Beat Podcast, where we take an unapologetically black approach to profiling the people and stories that are significant to the connectivity and advancement of our community. I'm John Washington, the CEO and editor-in-chief of Flossin Media, and your host for each episode of Black Beat. Today, we welcome Dr. Stephen Holt and DeAngelo Moaning, two dynamic individuals doing top-notch equity work. As an advisor to the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project and the principal of Tri-Excellent LLC, Dr. Holt provides equitable solutions to challenges in current policies and systems and strategically consults and facilitates conversations on national, state, and local reinvestment projects. DeAngelo Moaning is a chief of staff at Raimore Construction, a partner on the team of the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project, and a community involvement coordinator for public engagement efforts. As a multi-generational Portland native, he has long established ties to the historic albino community and serves as an economic committee chair on the Portland chapter of the NAACP. Both are here to fill our listeners in on the epic and historical significance of the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project and talk about their roles and forecasts for the future of this and other foundational visions for the city moving forward. A hearty welcome to you both, and thank you for joining us on Black Beat. Let's start out with a few little stories about who y'all is, okay? So let's talk about, can you both share just a bit of a history and how you got involved in the I-5 Rose Quarter project? And any one of y'all can go first anytime you choose to.
Yeah, I can go first. So just a quick history about myself. I am a third-generation Portlander. I've been here my entire life. My family has been here for well over 100 years. We first got here in the 1890s, back when it was illegal to be black in Portland past a certain amount of time. We worked in the shipyards. We were residents of Vanport, displaced by the flood, moved to Albina to work in the shipyards. And then with the original construction of I-5, my family, along with many other families, were displaced. I actually, growing up here, did not understand the significance of my history or the impact that my family or other black families have made to this community until I was overseas. I was in New Zealand, and I went to a concert. And there were nothing.
The hell is you doing in New Zealand, boy?
I was there.
Nothing but white folk over there in New Zealand.
that's what you would think. But when I went there and I went to this concert, it was nothing but Maori people.
Woo!
And so that was incredible to me. And so when I left the concert, I came back to the city. The only Maori person I saw was homeless, and I had the thought, this is awful. You know, how could this be? Why is nobody doing anything about this? But then I had the follow-up thought. How can you talk about somebody else's backyard if you've never taken care of your own? So I came back to the city, committed my life here, really studied the history of my family, and when I got the opportunity to work on this I-5 Rose Quarter project, my father actually worked, my father and my uncle worked on the original construction of the what is now the Moda Center.
Right.
My mother has worked in the Albina corridor for Albina Head Start for 35 years, and for me, it was an opportunity to not just play a part of the history of the city and continue my family's impact, but to really speak on the real stories of the people that have been impacted and how we can make this project turn a real equitable change for the community, where we're not on the menu, we're at the table.
Got you. Not on the menu and sitting at the table. Dr. Stephen Holt, would you like to share a little bit about your participation and how you came to this project?
Absolutely. Similar background in that my family came in the 40s. Parents, my father from Arkansas, my mother from Louisiana, and predominantly to work in the shipyards for Kaiser during the World War. At least that was my parents. or grandparents. So experienced the displacement of Vanport, then moved into what's become the industrial district. They experienced the displacement of the building of the Coliseum, the building of the freeway, the building of Emmanuel Hospital. So I've got the similar background in that those things were significant in their impact. As a result of it, I grew up at one point on Williams and Wygant. I was living right on the corner, 4810 North Williams and Wygant. Yeah, it's a little different now.
Yeah, a little bit.
When I lived on Williams and Wygant, to see a person of the lighter hue running, it was not a good thing.
Or riding on a bike.
Right? It was a different dynamic, a different experience. And whenever I share that in the midst of meetings today, people don't laugh. I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious. I was actually a part of the busing program from the late 60s, early 70s. I caught a bus on Williams and Wygant and rode out to Lake Oswego to go to school 5 days a week.
Yeah, and that campus way out there on that hill, way over there, Lake Oswego, but that was
crazy. And the only people who looked like me were the ones getting off the bus.
Wow.
And so it was a recipe for disaster in that there was no preparation for us to go into that environment, and there was no preparation for them for us to come into the environment. So I'm 8 years old. I'm in third grade. I'm being taken out of class during math, science, and social studies because they determined I could not learn like everybody else and had determined I would be a blue-collar worker. And so I'm getting behind in math. They're helping to perpetuate the very thing they're saying that I'm capable of.
Wow.
It was by the time I was in fourth grade, I don't know what I had done. I'm sure I was rambunctious. I'm sure I'd been acting out. I have no idea. But the teacher kept me after school, and that was back when you had the desk and the chair connected. And if you guys remember that, when you sit down on the desk, you open the desk,
fell over.
The teacher sat on the desk part and kicked me in my leg until my leg was bruised.
Wow.
My father was livid. I ended up being removed from that process, and I'll fast forward because I went to a school called Normandale and then Rose City, ended up going to Grant High School, and then did my undergraduate work at Warner Pacific. When I graduated with my undergrad degree, my senior thesis, my senior paper was called When Black is White. African American religion majors who attend Caucasian colleges. So I had a little chip on my shoulder, had a little attitude, right?
Well, I guess you just gave me a description of, I guess, who I was at that time, because I definitely went to one of them all white ones,
Yeah.
Well, at least predominantly white.
Yeah. Yeah, it was difficult. I had gotten to a place where I didn't care about, had no interest in, no value toward the white community because of my lived experience.
Wow.
However, the faith and my relationship with God helped me to realize that my experience prepared me actually to be a sharp arrow to go back into the environment, since I was trained and raised by their thinking, trained and raised by their perspective, trained and raised by their expertise, to come back in and use that very thing to help liberate and bring opportunities to our folk. So I got involved with housing, as you know. I've been the chair of the Northeast Oversight Committee for the last 8 years, and as a result of that, was actually sought and asked to take on this work with I-5 Rose Quarter.
Well, you hold that there. Hold that tone, because we're going to come back to that one now, because, about that ass. But, what I want to do is with DeAngelo, DeAngelo, if you can recall, man, if you can sort of look back, how was your family somehow directly impacted by the construction of the I-5?
Absolutely. So
can you talk a little bit about that? Talk to us a little bit about what those opportunities, and then what created that. What was the lesson in restorative justice that you uncovered and discovered in that process, and once you realized how the I-5 impacted your family?
So at the time, we had various homes and businesses, just like every other black family. It's not an uncommon story. My impact was no different than the impact of any other black family. We all lived and thrived there, made money, commuted, worked together. With the impact of the development of I-5 coming straight through that community, destroyed everything. So I would say that my impact and loss is no different than anybody else's. So there's the story saying it's the same story, but when you lose everything, I won't say when you lose, when you are removed and when you are displaced through policies such as blight and eminent domain, so on and so on, and you have nowhere to go, you've lost everything, everything is taken from you, the last thing that you can think about in that moment is restorative justice. You're not thinking about what to restore. You're thinking about what was taken from you. And when you have no economic opportunities, advantage to come out of that, you are then subject to the same policies that have kept us in this state that we are in as black people.
Hey, do y'all, this word restorative justice, I get caught up on it a little bit because I don't think back in the day that word wasn't around, was it?
Come on, man. That's what I was going to say.
Something, you know?
That's what I was going to say. There was no restoration, let alone no justice.
Hey.
It was just us.
Yeah.
That was just the reality. It was just
urban
us.
studies, community development was about black folk removal.
Absolutely.
That was it. Making empty lots.
Absolutely.
So restore what?
Absolutely.
And we have all these buzzwords that are used to describe black people that were not made for or by black people. So then we have to ask ourselves, who is this language really directed towards, and why are we co-opted by this language? I don't believe in restorative justice. I don't believe that is a phrase that applies to black folk. I believe that us as a people, we have to be restored, but not through what everybody seems to be calling restorative justice. And everybody's perception of what restorative justice is different. It's not something that somebody can agree on. So for me, it's just another phrase to get lost up. Well, what does that mean? And we spend more time thinking about what restorative justice is instead of just restoring people.
Yeah,
That's a problem.
Yeah, to some degree, but we're going to come to that. We're going to kick it live on the back end of this. But right now, let's see if we can build us a layer of getting to that argument or getting to that question, those things. So tell me, so when y'all think about restorative justice and policies and protocols and all that. So, Dr. Holt, talk to us a little bit about what's it like navigating these policies and politics and protocols here in Portland, that place called the whitest city in America?
One of the things that's so significant for all of us to consider is you can't understand where you are if you don't know where you've been.
Oh, God, Lord.
And so there is a reality of understanding the context of what brings you to this current experience, this current dynamic. And so when we look at, so when you talk about policies or systems or structures or infrastructure, where we are as a result of where we came from. Oregon's racist history cannot be ignored.
Cannot.
So anyone who's listening, let me encourage you to Google white utopia. So just put in your Google search, white utopia. And what will come up is the racist history of Portland and the racist history of Oregon, that it was intentionally created to be a place where people of color, blacks, Indians, you name it, were not welcome. It is the second largest state for the Klan. So Texas being first and Oregon being two.
One of the largest gathering of the Klan was here and in Oklahoma, but Oregon had one of the largest Klan gatherings in the history of the United States.
Absolutely. So second largest reality. So the systems, the structures, the policies that were created to benefit a privileged people. And when I say privilege, I'm talking about people who had access or close proximity to control, influence, decision-making, government setting, et cetera, et cetera. And so we talk about our current moment, the current things we're addressing and dealing with as it relates to economic opportunity, as it relates to income and income disparity, as it relates to home ownership, which for black people is at the levels of 1965 for ownership right here in Portland.
And business ownership,
business ownership. When we talk about those things, it isn't accidental. This isn't the result of a people who are lazy, unintelligent, without capacity or drive. The truth of the matter is we are the people who built the structure of the nation. It was built on our backs. We're the ones who laid the tracks. We're the ones who paved the way. We're the ones who created the opportunity. We're the ones who established the wealth. We're the ones who gave free labor, not by choice, but because of the policies and the politics that existed, right?
Yeah, free labor.
And so when we look at where we are at this very moment in the city of Portland, in the state of Oregon, we're decades behind in terms of real opportunity. This is not accidental. So navigating these waters, one of the things that's challenging is having to educate a people who are supposed to be leading you. and constantly having to bring before those who are in position of what I call proximity to access, influence, decision-making, and control, constantly having to educate them with how they even got there, and the fact that there are no others who look like us that are there, right?
Yeah.
And we constantly have this aha moment, right? This shock. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, you didn't have to know it. You didn't have to know it because it didn't impact you the way it impacted us. You didn't have to know it because you had the privilege of the access. You didn't have to know it because the opportunities were afforded you. We had to know it. We're the people of color, the folks who have to learn to speak multiple languages. We learn our own language, we learn our own culture, but we have to learn the language of the culture we've been forced to live in.
Hey,
we have to learn how to interact, we have to learn how to engage, we have to learn how to respond. So it's a loaded question, and the nuances are multifaceted. It requires of us, I think, three things. One, and this is what's amazing about who we are, the resiliency that we operate with. It's phenomenal that we keep coming back. We keep bouncing. And part of it is we have no choice, but then there's this other dynamic that we will not quit. Second thing that's amazing about us.
Don't make me talk about resurrection now, boy.
Come on, man. You know we can go. The second thing that's phenomenal, not only are we resilient, but we don't just survive, we thrive. What pressure causes to happen, just like the truth of taking a coal and making it a diamond, is what pressure causes to happen is excellence comes out.
Yeah.
The incredibleness of us comes out. And so it places within us the opportunity to be phenomenal. And then thirdly, I would say that this opportunity or this moment that we're in is a moment of new creativity. I think this whole project is an opportunity to reimagine how to do what we need to do along the lines of the whole educational piece, the redistribution of wealth, and making sure that there is real opportunity and access to benefit from it.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you tell us about is why is this project so important? So let's just get into that. Y'all tell us, why is the I-5 Rose Quarter project so important to us in the community? What makes it important?
Well, let me take that one. So before I get into that, let's talk about the actual history of construction. So like Dr. Holt said, we did lay the foundation for this country, whether it be the train tracks, work in the shipyards, whether it be the actual infrastructure of the country, again, by free labor, not by choice, but by force, right? We do this up until a civil war that impacts our freedom starts. We're freed not because it was the right thing to do, but because it was a tactical decision. So we are free because by releasing that labor, the South has no way to really fight this war. So Civil War ends, the North wins, whatever, right? Now we're in this Reconstruction era. Now you have this plethora of black people, these black folk that know how to do this work, but will not be paid properly for it. So with that, you get an amendment where slavery is illegal except in incarceration, right?
Yeah.
So what does that do?
That was the 13th Amendment, right?
Amendment.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So that is the beginning, the genesis of the prison industrial complex. Because
duly convicted.
So because with that comes the black code. So it's illegal to be a black man or black woman and not have work, right? Actually, for a black man to not have work, right? But either you find a job where you're teaching white folk the skills that you learned as they've unionized the trades that you cannot be a part of, right? So to put this in modern day terms so people can understand, let's say you are teaching white folk the skills that you've developed and built in this country for $3 an hour, but these people are getting paid $25 an hour, right?
Wow.
But at the same time, you might have this job, but now you have to pay a tax of, let's say, $100,000 a year to remain a free black man. And if you can't pay that, you either go to prison or you become an indentured servant, which is no different than being a slave, right?
Yeah.
So
that's what that 13th Amendment was really all about. Right.
So that creates an avenue where either you work to teach people skills and you yourself don't benefit from that work because you can't work to live, or you get incarcerated, right? So in the 100 to 150 years that precede, you have large white construction companies that were able to benefit from infrastructure work. So you have multiple billion-dollar companies that are, like I said, that are white-owned that can do this work. And you have a a lack of black people who have a connection to the trades, not realizing that they're people the ones that built this country. So the I-5 Rose Quarter project is important because you have a black contractor with a long, storied history of bringing work to the community and making sure that this work is built by and for the community, so black people can thrive. It's why if you go to any of these job sites or any of the job sites for this contractor, you can see black faces, you see minority faces, and you see people really learning skills that transcend a job and go into their personal life. You can learn how to build your own home, you can learn how to remodel your own home with these skills, and you can go into entrepreneurship of your own.
DeAngelo, tell me, is the construction game, what are some of the shortfalls or the pros and cons of the construction game today that you're recognizing that is has an adverse or a positive? Tell me a little bit about what's going on in that construction game today that neither accelerates, helps us. What are the pros and cons that are going on today in that game?
I would say
in terms of advancing young blacks in the skills.
The trades have been marketed as a second or third option. They've been marketed as unsafe, dangerous. There is this general thought that college is the only way to have a nice home, start a life, make a family for yourself, make a name for yourself, but that's not true. So we have students that are spending time going to college, and for some professions you do need college, like to be a doctor or a lawyer,
right.
But for a lot of our students, they are going to college to accrue hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And they don't realize that by working in the trades, you can work, you journey out, and you're from 3 to 5 years out, you start off making a decent wage, and when you journey out, you have control of your own destiny. So I would say the lack of representation for the trades, or even the unfair, that's the best way to say this. I would just say that the trades are not being spoken of properly, and I think it's another way to keep young black folks locked out.
So it's with a condition.
It's with a condition, yeah.
Right.
And so what we have it as an opportunity, because I kind of want to go back to where I was going before.
Go ahead.
We have an opportunity. We have an opportunity with a black contractor to really build and create a pipeline to get young black folks into work.
So that's what's significant.
That's what's significant.
Right. Making sure that somehow or another we have culturally specific in relationship to the growth of the demographic, is that demographic should have cultural representation that is significant for them to be able to accelerate through that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
If I could I weigh in a little bit on I-5, the Rose Quarter, and what's important about it, or what's important about this work?
Right.
When the Interstate 5 was put in, there was no engagement, no concern, no evaluation, no interaction with the people who lived in the neighborhood. It was intentionally placed in an area that wiped out a whole community. It wiped out houses. It wiped out businesses. It wiped out a thriving opportunity for people who were, because of how we identify it, black, right? And now what this does is it's the first time in the history of the Oregon Department of Transportation where they've acknowledged we did something incorrect. We want to do something better. It's the first time in the history of the state of Oregon where there's been an acknowledgement by a government agency that says we are committed to working at being better. We want to be more responsive. We want to take and leverage the possibilities of the finance, of the economy, of the opportunity, and do something that benefits the community by hiring the people and hiring representatives and hiring descendants of those who were impacted negatively. We can't overlook that. I don't think we should overlook that. Is it messy? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it awkward? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it difficult? Absolutely. But why wouldn't it be? You're talking about an institution that's been around for hundreds of years that's never done this.
Yeah.
And when they give the attempt to do it, so I want to say this to those who look like me, who are quick to say it's not enough, quick to say it's not significant, quick to say it's not real. It is real. It is happening. Raimore is on the scene. My company is on the scene. There's several other black-owned companies that are on the scene that are engaged in a process of bringing people who look like us into the opportunity. The other thing that's happened is there's been the establishment of a COAC, a Community Oversight Action Committee that's specifically put together to look for opportunities for blacks and brown people to be working on the project. And then there's also this Historic Albino Advisory Board that's involved in helping to oversee and speak into how the project is done and the way that it is designed and the artistry and the look. So this particular opportunity is unique. It is a possibility to set a path to create a place and a pace for how business gets done differently in the state of Oregon. It isn't just about this project. It is, but it isn't. It's about the project and our opportunity to do it well and do it right. But it isn't just about the project, because what we do is we set place and policy and system and structure for how the Oregon Department of Transportation can do work going forward, and then also as a testimony to how departments of transportation around the nation can do this work, because this didn't just happen in Portland.
Yeah, that's my point. That's what I was sitting here thinking, the contextual understanding of how we arrived here.
Yeah.
You know, this whole notion that these people just one morning woke up and they wanted to be nice to people of color.
Yeah.
That didn't happen that way. So what forced the hand?
That's a great question. I think it was a series of actions, a series of relationships, a series of opportunities. I'll highlight one. I mentioned about being the chair of the Oversight Committee. Well, when I became chair of the Oversight Committee, Commissioner Dan Saltzman was the commissioner. And also I pastor a church here in the city. As pastor of the church, we're doing these significant outreach actions, and I brought Dan in to be a speaker at some of these outreaches. Well, Dan and I built a good relationship.
Right.
Well, Brendan Finn was his chief of staff.
Yeah, I remember Brendan.
And Brendan had an opportunity to watch. We started building a good relationship. Brendan then moved in to work for the governor and became the director of urban mobility, the Office of Urban Mobility, which then oversees $100 million or more investment projects. Brendan, seeing the work that I'd been doing with the community in the volunteer capacity, and then a relationship with the commissioner, said Bishop Holt, which was what my title was at the time, he needs to be the guy at the table. He's able to help us navigate these waters, bring in the right kind of community voices, because we don't want to miss this opportunity. We want to do something differently. So goodwill, we're at an interesting moment. We're at an interesting moment in that there is goodwill, there's political investment and support, and there's money to do something about it. But it happens over time.
Yeah.
And it happens over time by us being involved, by us showing up, by us engaging. What happens, John, too often is we're so pissed off and frustrated, we stand on the outside just yelling at the institution. Sometimes we've got to get involved in the institution. And I'll say this, and I know you and I have had this conversation a lot, that sometimes we fight ourselves. We you know, if you're involved in the institution, then you're an Uncle Tom. If you're involved in the institution, then you're a sellout. If you're involved in the institution, then you're a traitor. Well, the reality is it doesn't change from the outside. It changes from the inside. You have to be involved in the institution.
Well, you know, Jim Crow had it set up a long time ago.
Come on, man.
You know, he talked about how we was going to beat each other down for a period of time after he stopped beating us down.
Right.
You know, but I think what's important, what I'm hearing you say, man, is that somewhere along the process there was applied pressure that was significant enough for them to begin to start taking a look at what was significant, and then how their ways of doing what they were doing were impacting communities of color. Right. And at some point in time, they got called the carpet on this. And I remember it actually over in a different church with the same Brendan. Yeah. He brought in, I think somewhere along the line, there was a request to bring in the director of ODOT. Right. And when he came in, I remember it was a small little group. And somehow or another, this cat was a little bit different about some things. He took a humble posture on some stuff. And it's not often when you see the white man in control take much of a humble posture on nothing. And if you get to be humble in any way, you're going to pay a price for that one in the back end on that, right? But I remember clearly saying to this cat, I challenged him. Chris Strickler. I remember asking him, are you an honest man? Do you tell the truth? Are you being honest about this? And are you an integritous man? You know, all those things that I think to some degree... The appropriate suspicion that's necessary. Right. And so that we don't stand back and then we walk out of the room and we say, well, do you think he was honest? Right. Do you think, well, whatever. When we know the truth about something, if we feel like we need to challenge that, we can do so.
We better.
But we don't have that fearful reality to be doing that. But in that time, I wasn't fearful. I actually asked him the questions, went straight up. Can we hold you responsible for the things that you say?
That we can be confrontational, which just means addressing an issue without being aggressive.
You're right.
Right? So I don't have to be
Assertive
threatening.
versus aggression.
Right?
Right.
I don't have to be threatening,
Right.
but we're certainly not going to back away from what we need to talk about
Hey, ain't
and
nothing
or
wrong
address
with
it
the truth, my
and
brother.
hold people accountable.
Yeah.
So we have an opportunity to hold folks accountable with a director like Chris Strickler, with Brendan Finn, making the statements that they've made about wanting to do business differently. That's what makes this opportunity unique. It's unlike anything else ever in the history of our state, and it would be amazing if we had us rallying to say, give us opportunity, give us jobs, help create and incubate small businesses. We want to leverage this $1 billion plus investment, and then also to tie it into the interstate bridge replacement.
Right.
Because that's next on the horizon.
Right.
It just makes sense, right?
So how do we sell this, Holt? I mean, and I'm not talking about selling it. I guess I'm looking at in past things that are historically been an impediment for our gain or for our growth, right? And most of it's between our own two ears, right?
Right.
So the question, how do we begin to sort of convince our community, or not even convince, how do we get them to hear behind the ear? In other words, how do we get them to hear the truth? If it is the truth, if the establishment is coming, look, we want some form of forgiveness or some concession, something. We want to acknowledge y'all's pain. We want to give you some kind of reprieve.
Yeah.
How do we sell that back to our people when you got those same people standing telling, man, don't believe that shit that white man saying?
Right.
You know, so how do we begin to, because what I'm hearing y'all say is opportunity is upon us.
Right.
And for those who don't take the initiative to grab hold of that opportunity, we continue to stay stagnant within our existence that is minuscule or mediocrity.
Yeah.
So how do we sell people on this advancement and this opportunity for life-changing conditions?
I think that when we have been given opportunity, it's opportunity with a caveat or with parameters. It's opportunity given by people that don't look like us. Conditional, exactly. So we have an opportunity to engage a workforce that looks just like us, black folk, right? With a contractor that works with us that has a storied history of working for and by black people. So it's not just saying come join construction, which is usually a good old boy system. It's come work in construction and come earn a living wage with people that look like you. Come build skills with people that look like you because you have the opportunity. Again, these skills are transcendental beyond this project, Interstate Bridge, I-405, or wherever you may want to go. But it's really a leveraging point into entrepreneurship and self-sustainability. That is the goal here.
Got you.
I would say proof is in the pudding. So I think systematically, I think strategically, I think kind of step 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. I think that there are a few things, and I won't try to prioritize them, but I will toss them out in terms of specifics, right? What do we do? One is we need to have a space where we can interact, where we can dialogue. There has to be some kind of opportunity to bring community together and talk this out. Everybody isn't going to trust. They're not supposed to. Everybody isn't going to be in favor. You're not supposed to. Everyone isn't going to buy it. Air quotations here. That's okay. But can we get into a place where we can intelligently dialogue? I think what you're doing right here is an opportunity for that, right? Or can we convene it where we can get people together and talk about the concerns and legitimize it? That's among us. Secondly, bring in some of these decision makers, some of these influencers, some of these voices. Bring a Brendan Finn, bring a Chris Strickler, bring the decision makers into an environment to have that kind of conversation also. I think we have to have a conversation. Those are maybe 1 and 1A. The other thing is trust is built over time. Trust is built over time. Proof is in the pudding. DeAngelo just referenced Jeff Moreland and Raimore Construction. Raimore Construction has a proven track record. They have a history. There's something you can look at and examine and see. Now, if they're on this job, you can then make the conclusion, hopefully, you can draw the conclusion they're going to be the same on this job that they've been on every other job. They have far exceeded percentages of employment and opportunities for women and people of color beyond any other company here in the state.
And I actually want to make note of that. So,
right.
Raimore just recently completed a project with 85% DB engagement. That's
85%.
That's unheard of.
That's national standard.
Yeah, well,
right.
That's crazy.
That's phenomenal. And so we have that opportunity to, again, proof is in the pudding. Don't just assume, trust. But thirdly, here's the thing about us, bro. We talk more than we walk. We're forever flapping our chops, but we won't do what's necessary to roll up our sleeves and get involved.
Yeah.
And so I'd say get involved. If we're saying there's opportunities, then take advantage of those opportunities.
Hold on. So
right?
just so that you because you just made the turn, and the turn I'm hearing you say, so instead, before we make that turn, let me ask you, so what stage is the project in, number one, right? And what are the avenues that people can take to get involved? So let's talk a little bit about that as we come to the corner, okay?
Yes, sir.
So what stage is the project in right about?
We're about 30%. So we got 70% to go, right? Ground hasn't been broken yet. No concrete laid, nothing ripped up and torn up. So there's plenty of opportunity to get employed. There's plenty of opportunity to respond and engage. There's plenty of opportunity to find out about what specifically is going on. You can go to the Oregon Department of Transportation's website and look at the I-5 Rose Quarter. You can get all of the information related to that. You can reach out to Raimore Construction and get connected that way. There's great opportunity associated. If you are a business owner and you have specifics that specific skills and talents that connect to construction, you've got a direct opportunity and a direct pipeline for employability. There are early work packages that are being released, and I'll let you talk more about those specifically.
Not only that, DeAngelo, I'm going to need you to also talk and give people a little bit of information on how to reach you, Raimore, all that kind of stuff. Also, as you conclude in your state of address at this point.
Yeah. So right now we are still in pre-construction. The project won't actually break ground until 2025. We have 3 early work packages, A, B, and C. 2 of them have been awarded. The 3rd one is coming soon. We're expecting to start work on early work package A and sometime January, February. But we are moving towards really getting this project off the ground. We have a workforce advocate who's specifically been hired to engage community and to get people a pipeline into the trades. Even if this project is not going now and the main package doesn't start till 2025, we have other job sites that we can put people on now. The whole point is to build that pipeline and give you the skills so you hit the ground running on this project.
Build that pipeline.
Exactly.
Woo, boy, this has been a screamer this morning, y'all. Y'all done got my head spinning on opportunity. And I'll tell y'all, for those of you who are listening to this podcast out there, look it. This is bona fide, y'all. I mean, this I-5 quarter, $1 billion and more dollars are invested in this project. One of the biggest and most expensive projects in the state of Oregon. And when it is done,
yes, sir.
Think about what the opportunities are going to be. Let's talk about what some of those potential opportunities will be, Dr. Holt and DeAngelo, as to what's going to be the finished product. What are we going to be finished with? And when we do, who going to be managing it, and who going to be? We'll talk a little bit about all that.
Hopefully, what happens as a result, hopefully what we've done is we've created a host of people who have new skills, new capacities, new living wage, better lifestyle, number one. Number two, that, that we're talking about building this cap, this kind of a bridge, as it were, that's livable, buildable over a section of the highway. Hopefully what that does is it creates opportunity for business incubation, for business owners to move their spaces and property to this 1.7 acres that's being developed.
Are there going to be
on top of it.
On this project?
It is. Yes, and possibly 6 story high buildings that will be bridging from, I think it's Broadway to, oh gosh, I can't think. It's almost up to, why is the street?
Yeah, kind of where
I can't think of the other street.
Kind of meets.
This was a Rose Quarter, right there.
Yeah, right in the Rose Quarter. So it's like 4 blocks north. Yeah. But it will create opportunity for community center, create opportunity potentially for restaurant, places to gather, hang out. It will be, the result of it will be the restoration, per se, of community, or the opportunity of community. And let me say this real quickly.
Come on.
In terms of terms. I'm a linguist, and so what I like to do is define the words. And and then in defining the words, agree upon what those definitions are, so that no one is left with, I don't know what restorative justice means.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what restore means.
Yeah,
let's
come on.
define restore. To restore is to put back what once was. It is to store again.
But you see, that's why, as a clinician, I got a little issue with the restore part.
Absolutely.
Because that's the difference between rehabilitation and habilitation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the differences is that rehabilitation is that somehow or another it's implied that, these people have some type of deformity or whatever, and you rebuilding them, restoring. But the habilitate simply means to restore to an original working order.
Yeah.
Okay? And rehabilitation means to restore something that's broken, that they somehow or another don't want to, whatever broke it don't want to take responsibility for breaking it.
Yeah.
So they want to go rehabilitation.
Right.
But to habilitate something is really what we're talking about, right?
Well,
it's just to restore it back to its original working order.
And so let's just take just that right there. To restore, here's why I like it. I like it because I'm saying I broke it. For me to own it and say we're going to restore it, I'm saying I broke it.
Well,
and
I'm
what ODOT is saying, there you go. ODOT is saying we broke some stuff. We messed some stuff up. We're not saying the people. They're talking about this opportunity to do it correctly, which is why they're engaging community, engaging opportunity, and trying to leverage this workforce and trying to build and develop capacity for small business incubation. These are some of the things that will come out as a result, hopefully. And according to our mayor, and I think it was 2020, it might have been 2021, at the NAMAC annual Christmas celebration, the mayor, Ted Wheeler himself, said, I want to make black millionaires. That came out of his mouth.
Wow.
Heard him myself.
Wow.
And so let's make sure it happens.
Yeah, come on, man.
Hold
Let's
him
get in
accountable.
line. You going to be in line, DeAngelo? To make that happen.
I hope I ain't the only one there.
Don't worry about it. I'm going to be standing there.
I think for me, and I mean, I'm gonna echo a lot of what Dr. Holt said, but my original point is that we have to understand our historical importance and significance of the trades, especially as it pertains to us, and we have to make sure that we are using this opportunity as a real economic engine to move people forward. It's not just about the skills. It's not just about this project. This project is a trampoline. It's a leveraging point.
Correct.
There are going to be other projects like this across the country. There are going to be other projects like this around the world.
Correct.
My hope is that we are restoring people and they build their place that they cannot be compromised from.
Yeah, man, and I'll tell you, even in some of the projects as having a little bit of a former life of a developer, some of the projects that we have that are going on now, I mean, in looking at black-centric development, it was a real hard beast to find, for so long. I mean, even if we wanted to build the building, because I don't think most people know about in construction, when you build a project, a lot of times the developer has a signature.
Right.
And that signature has a beacon.
Right. Yep.
And so that when we see the reproductive types of situations where you see the Starbucks and this and that always, and the same types of crowns and the same type of beacon, is that it attracts those people to those specific communities.
Of course. Yep.
And most people don't realize that construction is a catalyst for how some of these white or versus other cultural communities are developed. So what has to be taught is the education about how the construct continues to assemble itself and at the same time be able to keep us out of that environment.
Right.
Okay, so I agree with you, DeAngelo, is that young people today or anyone today who understand that the trades is just not necessarily has to be number 3 or number 4, is that it is significant that we look at a lifestyle that is conducive to us being successful. Okay, but hey, man, y'all, look here. It's that time. We got to wrap this up. But man, but before I do so, is there anything y'all feel that is significant that the listeners should hear or know from y'all that we didn't cover here? In short, with a little bullet point, telling them a little something about something that we ain't talk about yet.
We talked about it, but I want to paraphrase, especially as it pertains to the city that we live in, is that when we are in a situation where we are with people who have made it so we have to fend for ourselves, it is up to us to fend for one another. And we have a real opportunity to do that.
Thank you about that, Angelo, and reminding us it's important that we take care of one another. Dr. Holt?
It is so interesting that Portland has a tendency to be first in many areas, in many arenas.
Right.
Portland has a tendency to be out front. Here's an opportunity for us as people of color to participate in a first. This is the first project of restorative activity related to infrastructure in the nation. Don't miss it.
Don't miss it.
And if we are involved, we have a tendency. I said we're resilient, but we're not just resilient. I said we excel, but we don't just excel. I said we're the people who set the pace. We have the opportunity of demonstrating to the nation how it can be done. Come on now. Get involved.
That's a heck of a road. But look here, we're going to take that as a tip to part here. Thank you very much for being part of the show, where we take pride in improving people's perceptions of capability, significance, and influence in their lives and in their communities. Hey, y'all, thank y'all very much for coming and being a part of our show. This is Black Beat. This concludes our episode of Black Beat. And hey, y'all better get this barn burning, because it is burning. It is burning in my heart and in my head, and it will be burning in your head and in your heart once you hear it. Thank y'all, and y'all have a great afternoon.